The off season is here. I've got a lot of big decisions to make leading into the 2030 season, but first, our season score for 2029 is a 422. This is an average score, foolish. Before we get to our owner feedback, this is one of the saddest emails you can get in any OOTP save. Team trainer Rick Jamieson has retired. Rick Jamieson, who is known for his legendary ability to prevent arm injuries, he definitely did that last year. I don't think we had a single guy miss a start last year, so he's going to be tough to replace. We'll have to get the best trainer we possibly can, particularly with a focus on preventing arm injuries. Reviewing our team goals with owner John Fisher, we didn't suck this year, so he is happy with the 78-84 record. His goal for us this year in terms of the team record is to play 500 ball, so we'll have to do that to keep him happy on that front. We haven't acquired a Cy Young Award winner. I may look into that. You can kind of cheese that a little bit. And then not happy with attendance, not happy with my results in road games. But the farm system he's all right on. We are not a top 6 farm system like the goal has stated. We have actually been that at times, but then we graduated guys like Cuvée and I guess now Baker too. But we'll just have to see. But overall, I would say our job security is still there. He's satisfied with my performance, and his overall mood is happy. The only player we have entering an option year is Reese McGuire. He has a team option for $2 million with a $400K buyout. Ratings have come down some. He'll be 35 next year. He lost the catching job to Jane Melendez, so this is a pretty easy one. We are going to void his last contract year. Thank you for your service, Reese McGuire. Here's how I've got the player development lab set up, or should I call it the improved two-strike approach lab, because that's what we're doing with all these hitters. Cuvée, Mears has been there before. Connor Griffin is one we're going to focus on. He could be our center fielder going into next year, kicking Chris Baker over to left, but I'd like to see him improve those avoid Ks before that happens. And I think with Castellanos, I just got to get him in with the avoid Ks right away. You know, I got to get him into the avoid Ks every offseason so we don't reach the point where he's ready to be a big leaguer, but he's going to strike out like 250 times if he becomes one. And then Ronan Kopp, we're going to work on improved control. We tried stamina last year. We'll see. His ARB estimate is really high. I kind of want to start him, but he only has 35 stamina. It's just a tough place to be in. And then Frank Trejo, increased movement. That's maybe his one weakness, because otherwise I think he's a very good pitcher. But that's how we're setting up the player development lab for this offseason. So here we are at the arbitration screen, and I got to warn you guys, things are going to happen very quickly. Things are going to move very quickly here. We're going to start by non-tendering Brady Basso. Here are his career pitching stats for us. He was actually very good for us as recently as 2028 when he had 32 starts, 195 innings, 2 WAR. But the ratings have come down. He's a 2-star. His 35 stuff means he's just not going to get any strikeouts. And you can see it from the numbers this year. Just no strikeouts at the big league level. He's 7.46 ERA. And, with the budget being what the budget is, $2.4 million, that makes a difference. Also going to non-tender Judd Fabian, which he's also been good for us in the past. In 2028, had a good platooning year, had been platooning some for us. He's decent against the left-handed pitching in particular. But I think with Honeycutt and Newell, those are good, like 4th, 5th outfielder types for us as we wait for, Connor Griffin to hopefully come up and establish himself at some point. So he gets non-tendered as well. And then everyone else here is going to get tendered a contract except for Ronan Kopp. Ronan Kopp with that $11.4 million ARB estimate. If I ask him, what does he want? He wants, $13.6 million. He'd probably take, 12.5 or something like that. That is so much money. And in terms of the startability of him, and that is his expectation right now, starting rotation, the 40 control, 35 stamina, it just doesn't really vibe with me. So I think now is going to be the time to trade Ronan Kopp. And the way this is going to work is I get 4 trades this offseason, and because I'm going to go ahead and trade Ronan Kopp now, that's going to start sort of a domino effect. So I'm going to do all 4 of my trades of this offseason right now. And we're going to say goodbye to some pretty big names on this team, but we are going to shed some payroll, and that's going to make for an interesting free agency potentially, or at the very least, we can max out our dev budget, our draft budget, our scouting budget, whatever that is. But we're going to shed some payroll right now, and it's going to be hard. So we'll start by trading Ronan Kopp, who has the big ARB estimate coming. He has 2 years until he hits free agency. He has exactly 4 years of service time. And man, has he really served us well. Look at that 147 ERA plus that 6.8 F4, 360 innings, and just the highest of leverage innings too. That's really big. I think he made more impact for us as like a 90 inning stopper than he would have as like a 150 inning starter. I really do believe that. Landon Knack is going to go in this trade as well. This seems to be a trend for us. We love to trade away whoever we just traded for at the trade deadline that didn't work out for us. That's actually not the first time this is going to happen this offseason either, but here's a look at Landon Knack. He still has 2 more years on his deal as well, and then Yonder Pinheiro is just a throw-in. So in return, let's talk about the return. Chase Lee, this is hopefully going to be our replacement for Kopp. This looks like he could be a very, very good reliever. Interesting, came from Pittsburgh, was great in Pittsburgh, and then Washington, not so good in Washington. But I think this can hopefully be someone who can be, at least somewhat in the same ballpark, in the same universe as Ronan Kopp. The more interesting of the two, I actually think, is Ethan Petry. Ethan Petry was the 3rd overall pick of the 2025 draft. He's listed as a first baseman. I think he could play third base for us. He's kind of Cuvée-like in terms of his numbers. Not the greatest contact, but great power and great eye. He has generally hit well at the major league level. As you can see, he was a 124 OPS plus 2 years ago, 114 this year. And because of that, he has 2 years of service time exactly. And so, we're trading for years of team control here in the form of Ethan Petry. And that is going to cause a domino effect because we have Cuvée, because we have Young, because we have Pasquantino, all those corner infield types, they can't all play at the same time. So there will be a trade with that coming up. And trust me, it's not going to be popular with the fans. But this is the trade we're going to make right now. We're going to say goodbye to Ronan Kopp in particular. We're going to get Chase Lee, who can hopefully, give us something similar to Ronan Kopp. And then Ethan Petry, who I hope will, become a fixture in this lineup for the years to come. So let's go ahead and complete this first trade. So when I traded for Petry, not Petry, I just looked up the pronunciation. He's currently at the University of South Carolina, by the way. But when I traded for Petry, I figured I would trade Jace Young. I figured that would be the follow-up. Both Jace Young and Vinny Pasquantino have 1 year left on their deal. The amount of money is going to be pretty similar once we get through Jace Young's arbitration. 124 OPS plus on Young last year, 131 on Pasquantino. But with the caveat, Young is, has more to offer defensively. I figured I would just trade Young and keep Pasquantino because he's been part of this team for a while, and you can see his stats with the team. He's played it for us about as much as he played for Kansas City in this save. 124 OPS plus for both teams. He's been super consistent. He's been our leadoff hitter. But unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye. And in doing so, we will free up some cash for us, and that's big. We are big on freeing up the cash this offseason. We were in the red for much of last season, so it's good to free up the cash, get the payroll down, because we may be able to leverage that somehow in free agency or somehow with regards to the player development budget, which I think will just help us in general. And speaking of developing players, the Atlanta Braves are in win now mode, and we're going to trade for a couple of prospects. The less interesting one is Pete Barker. He was their 2027 ninth rounder. Could have back of the rotation type stuff, high work ethic, really good performance for him in A this year. And then the bigger name is Ramiro Fuentes. Ramiro Fuentes was an international free agent signing for them last winter, and he has high work ethic as well, and just great hitting potential across the board. I love the 65 infield range as well. That means he'd play as a very good second baseman. He's already a 1-star with a 4-star potential, and he already made it to A-ball, and he's only 18 years old. So a lot of development, we're going to make this trade, and it's going to hurt us now, and we may not see the dividends of it for quite some time. But I do think this is the right thing to do, especially considering the trade for Ethan Petry and the fact that we have Cuvée. And I really like Cuvée. I think Cuvée is going to be a part of this team's future. So let's go ahead and complete this trade, even though the fans will not like it. Third trade here, we are going to trade away Christian Montes de Oca, who has been nothing but brilliant for us ever since we picked him up off waivers from Arizona. Arizona used him for 4 innings in the majors, and ever since then, he has been ours, and he has been brilliant, a 2.51 ERA across 97 innings. We're going to trade him because I think we're going to get something that we need, which is a number 3 starter. Keep in mind, we traded away Landon Knack, and I believe in Seth Johnson here. And I know we've heard this story before. I know I trade for, pitchers like this all the time, but I like Seth Johnson. Look at this repertoire. Look at this 70 grade slider. Look at the performances so far. He's generally been a 2 to 3 WAR pitcher, kept that ERA plus up, extreme ground baller. He has 2 years left on his deal, and Baltimore, who have been a frequent trade partner for us, will quite graciously cover 40% of those last 2 years. So we'll be paying him, basically $4.5 million across those years. And then Theo Gillen, Our Theo Gillen's a guy I traded for way back in 2025. Just didn't quite develop the bat. Great fielder. David Rivera, not a big leaguer. So we're going to go ahead and make this trade. Nick Krall was ecstatic about the first 2 trades we made. He says this one is just an okay deal, but we could do better. That may be true, but I'm happy to get Seth Johnson to be our number 3 starter to complement Shimizu and DL Hall. Complete trade. So I did originally think I would do all 4 of my trades of the offseason before hitting the arbitration here, but I ended up doing 3. I'm going to keep 1 in my back pocket. It could be a trade to take on salary, for example, but I just don't know exactly what position I'm going to need to address before I take a good look at the free agency class. So this is what we're going to do in arbitration. We've offered Miller, Waldrep, Lopez, Lee contracts, and then we're going to arbitrate with the rest of them. The big one is going to be Jace Young, just because he's by far the biggest money player left. Before we get into award season, we have signed a new trainer. It is Mr. Randy Norman. He does have that legendary prevent arm injuries, but he's only okay at preventing leg injuries, so I'm a little worried about that. I don't want any, torn ACL screwing up our season, but we'll just have to see. He was fairly cheap, though. This is a much cheaper salary than we were paying Rick Jameson. Gold Glove awards are in. Jacob Cozart wins again at catcher. He is just a monster in this save. Max Clark grabs his first as a Detroit Tiger in center. And Kyle Tucker wins one for the Seattle Mariners. Here's the rest of his Mariners contract. He plays for the Mariners. That is gross. In the National League, Drew Romo, OOTP legend, grabs his at catcher. Willy Adames at age 34 on the Dodgers, still doing it, still playing great elite defense. And the Phillies corner outfielders Justin Crawford and Drew Burress grab Gold Gloves as well. Your American League reliever of the year is Woo Suk Go, although Jason Adam came quite close. Ronan Kopp does get a first place vote. Looks like Washington is intent on using him as a starter, but also our new closer, Spencer Arrighetti, gets a first place vote. So hey, maybe the bullpen can get on without Ronan Kopp. Adbert Alzolay wins unanimously in the National League, although he did have some competition from his own teammates Camilo Doval and Jojo Ramiro. No wonder the Diamondbacks won the World Series. They had 3 awesome relievers. Silver Sluggers, we have one. It's the first one we've won, and I guess we kind of have 2. We did just trade Vinny Pasquantino to the Braves, but Josh Mears will grab a Silver Slugger after grabbing a Gold Glove award the year before. I'd love to see him get 2 at once, but a great breakout year for Josh Mears, 42 homers. The fact that Evan Carter wins in center field instead of Julio tells me that something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. Great years for Wyatt Langford and Jackson Holliday. In the National League, here we go. Nolan Gorman and Esteban Miraz, these are 2 St. Louis Cardinals. Gabby Moreno continues to just absolutely rake in this save. It is pretty ridiculous. James Wood grabs one. Acuna grabs one. Just a great showing all around from the Reds. Just looking at this too. Wow, with Ellie Marte and Charlie Condon. AL Rookie of the Year, Daniel Cuvée does not win. I wasn't even expecting him to be in contention with the year he had, but he finishes second and he gets some first place votes. Eduardo Tate, a catcher, is going to win this one for the Yankees. In the NL, the class is once again stronger, rookie-wise. Chris Yatzak and Drew Burress, both of the Phillies going up against each other. Yatzak barely wins, but they both look like awesome players for the Phillies outfield in the future. AL Manager of the Year is Dong Wook Song, who is the manager of the Tigers now in the simulation. And in the National League, it is Torey Lovullo, who just won himself a World Series. Your AL Cy Young winner is Logan Allen of the Detroit Tigers. He's been with Detroit for quite a while after a trade in 2025. Also, a fellow Tiger, Jackson Jobe, is going to be the runner-up. DL Hall finishes 5th. I think that's the best Cy Young finish we've maybe had. And then Connor Phillips winning for the Brewers. Always been a big strikeout guy in this save, but he finally figures out the run prevention element of it. Good for him. Braxton Garrett gets a first-place vote as well. He finishes 2nd. And finally, AL MVP. Josh Mears does finish 9th, but it's going to be Wyatt Langford who takes this one. This is his first MVP award, and the first MVP we've seen in a long time that doesn't go to Julio Rodriguez. Acuna is going to win the MVP in the National League, and what's interesting is both these guys got a little bit injured, and James Wood, who finished 2nd, was a little more injured. But look at James Wood's ratings. Look at the fact that James Wood hit 370 this year. I think he's the best player in this save when healthy, because these ratings are just absolutely unbelievable. But Acuna will take the MVP in the National League this time. Here are the results from the arbitration hearings. They ruled in favor of Jace Young and Spencer Arrighetti, so those guys are going to get nice paydays, although not a big difference in terms of the money we were actually arguing over. And they did rule in favor of us in terms of Bryce Montez de Oca, so I guess it all kind of balanced out in the end, but that's still a lot of money. The CPU-generated international free agents have entered the market, and for the first time, None of them are really all that good, so I don't think any of them really play into the offseason. But oh boy, look at the rest of the free agents. Elly De La Cruz is a free agent. Jackson Holliday is a free agent. Grayson Rodriguez, Bobby Miller. This is by far the best free agent class we have seen throughout this entire save. And we do have some money. I don't know if we'll be able to play right at the top of this market, but we could make some impact signings here in free agency for really the first time in this save. I think in terms of areas we should focus, maybe corner outfield, probably middle infield. Backup catcher could be one, and then left-handed reliever is definitely a big one. If we can get another great starter, I'm all for it. One guy I might keep an eye on is Jacob deGrom. He's 41 and wrecked, so it's not really from a performance thing. It's just the idea is that he is a popular player, and he would fulfill our goal of signing a Cy Young Award winner. We're waiting to see what the actual market for some of these big free agents is, but here's the Hall of Fame ballot, which is headlined by a couple of JVs, Justin Verlander and Joey Votto. Jackson Holliday has signed with the Astros. I'm okay with that. It's a really team-friendly deal, I think, at the end. 8-256, that's not a bad piece of business by them, but he was fragile. And so even though he's quite young, I was actually leaning more Elly De La Cruz between the two of them. Elly still remains available, but if I go to offer him a contract, he wants a lot. So I may try to make him an offer here. I may not, but if I could get Elly for the Holiday contract and just sort of rearrange the money a little bit so that it's more backloaded, maybe. Into the winter meetings now. I have tried to negotiate with Elly. I haven't quite been able to submit a contract offer he'd been interested in, but if his demand goes down just a little bit, it is possible. The draft lottery has been announced at the winter meetings. We are not in it. We're never in it. We've only been in it like once this entire save. Past the winter meetings now, this is about what Elly has been asking for. I have been able to talk him down to like a $320 or a $330 million contract across 8 years. But even then, I would need like team options and backloaded at the end of all of that, even more so than this. So I'm not going to submit any offers for now. I'm going to hope he doesn't sign with anyone for like $250, because that would be very annoying, right? He wants $350. That's what he's telling me, and then he signs for someone, for $250, and I say I could have given you $250. So probably gonna have to wait till the new year to see if we are still in play for Elly De La Cruz. Rule 5 draft, we'll be picking 12th. I did have to add a couple people to the 40-man. I think most notably Connor Wong, who could very well be our backup catcher this year after serving the last season in AAA. But we'll be picking 12th. We'll see if there's anyone interesting available there. Here's the draft so far, and Jarren Duran was the first pick. I will point out, though, he was quite bad at the major league level last year. Billy Amick is here. We Rule 5'd him last year, but he didn't make the team. Zach Geloff, hello, old friend, is also here. I just don't think there's really a place for either of these guys, so I think we're going to move on without making a pick. Elly De La Cruz has signed. It is not with us. He's going to be a Detroit Tiger for 8 years at about a $40 million AAV. Honestly, I disregarded Jackson Holliday, but this AAV is better, so nice piece of business by Houston. Mason Miller has also signed with the Blue Jays. He will be their closer. Honestly, the guy I'm keeping an eye on right now has to be Spencer Strider. He's fragile. He's been very injured. It's been a while since he had a good season. The only problem is he has this torn flexor tendon in his elbow. 6 months left to recover on that, so he wouldn't even get back until the middle of the year. And if I go to offer him a contract, it looks something like this, and he wants a vesting option. It's not going to vest because you're not going to pitch until July maybe in the majors. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'm not sure if I'll give him an offer or not, but it is a possibility, especially considering, hey, he is a Cy Young Award winner. January 1st, so Strider ended up signing with the Phillies. Gross for $220. Again, he won't be able to pitch until the middle of the year, and then it's, what's the contract? Is it a vesting option? Yeah, so they're not going to get him. So they're basically paying $20 million for like 3 months of him maybe. I'm okay with missing out on that. Grayson Rodriguez goes to the Astros. I was also looking at him. He was definitely the best pitcher available. I just wasn't sure if I was comfortable with 6 years on him. We're trying to stay financially flexible. I know I'm doing all the GM speak that you hate when it's actually your team, but it's the truth. I mean, I don't want to get that much money tied up in a player unless they are amazing. So what I may do now is seek out a trade to take on some salary and get a good player. Well, ultimately kind of a disappointing free agency for us. We did shed a lot of payroll with the trades this offseason, and we were hoping to be in contention for one of the big-name free agents, and it just never quite happened for us. So here's a trade that's going to make the team better in the short term. We've done a lot of trying to improve the team in the long term, selling off relevant pieces to get more years of control in return. Here's a trade that's sort of the opposite of that. We're going to get Cedon Rafaela. He's got 1 year left on his deal. I think he's going to play mostly second base for us, but he can play everywhere. So I think he could be in the outfield for us as well. Gavin Williams, same thing. Contract expiring, 1 year left on the deal. I think he can help us in the rotation, just give us another rotation option. And then Cam Caminiti, who is going to help us out in the bullpen and could actually, if he develops a little bit more, help us in the rotation someday. He's only 23. He was a second rounder for the Giants in 2025. And in return, we'll send them Steve Young. I like Steve Young a lot, but I also like Jaden Melendez a lot. Jaden Melendez has that captain personality type, which is just great for us. Victorien Roussel is a French-Canadian outfielder we drafted, 2028 sixth rounder. Good ratings, but I think he's just, I'm not sure if he's a big leaguer, I guess. I'm not sure if he's an everyday guy. And Dan Urquiza is minor league depth. We already have Ackerman. We already have Guevara, so he's not really necessary. So we're going to go ahead and make this trade. It's going to make our team better in the short term, and guys like Williams and Rafaela could be trade pieces come deadline. We'll just have to see if we're in contention or not. So let's complete this trade, our final one of the offseason, and it's now January 15th. The preseason is beginning, and we can talk about some of these international amateur free agents. We have also signed Jacob deGrom, the 41-year-old Jacob deGrom, on a 1-year deal. I think we'll use him out of the bullpen as sort of that long reliever. I don't know if he'll actually stick around the team or if we're just going to hold on to him until we get credit for signing a Cy Young winner. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Like Eric Segura is probably going to get bumped into the bullpen now, or AAA. So if he does well, he can stick around for us in a long relief role. If not, we'll just cut him once we get credit for signing a Cy Young Award winner, which he has won 3 of those. Here are the international amateurs we have been scouting and inviting to practice with us. I don't think there's anyone that's truly a can't-miss prospect right here. The closest is probably Nelson Huerta, a first baseman with some big power and high work ethic and high intelligence. But I don't think this is going to be one of those years where we just drop all our budget on one guy. I'm hoping to get 2 or 3 of these guys on this list. All right, it is January 22nd. We got this guy, David Matta, to sign. He is a catcher known for his blocking and power. He signed for $1.5 million. We also got David Escobar. He's listed as a second baseman, probably more of a first baseman, but really good hitting potential across the board. He signed for $850. And then one more, Luis Turon, listed as a shortstop, probably best suited as a second baseman. Also some very nice hitting stats. Not a lot of base running to speak of, but he signs for $800. So I think we spent about half of our budget. Nelson Huerta we're working on, but we may find that we run out of budget. And now he has an offer greater than our remaining bonus pool, so we have to figure out how to spend the rest of that money. All right, getting into spring training now, we have signed the shortstop Bryce Durney. Big power, big strikeouts. It's still something. I think he'd probably be a really good third baseman. And we're working on another catcher by the name of Jesus Orellana. I tried my best there. High intelligence, good contact, good power, good eye. The framing isn't awesome, but yeah, we'll see. Alrighty, and just like that, it is time for Spring Training 2030. We have some game strategy set on these guys for positions that they'll either play for us in the long term or the short term. I've invited Diego Cartaya on a non-guaranteed deal to compete with Connor Wong for that backup catcher spot. So these are the position players we have. We have about 40 players competing for 26 roster spots. Here are the pitchers we've invited. That includes, of course, Jacob deGrom, who we signed, and also some minor league signings like Brendan McKay. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's what we've got going for spring training. Just crossing our fingers for no major injuries. Here are our results from the development lab. Worst we've gotten so far: Joshua Mears, no improvement. Connor Griffin, no improvement. Castellanos, no improvement. Frank Trejo, no improvement. But Daniel Cuvée successful in improving his two-strike approach. I like that. Jesus Orellana, who is the catcher I mentioned earlier, has an offer above our remaining bonus pool, so I think that's just where we're going to stop the international amateur free agent signings for now. Didn't quite use all our bonus pool, but I don't really like any of the guys who are left over. February 23rd, Rafaela, who we just traded for, has an injury delayed diagnosis. We'll have to see what that is as we sim along here. Day-to-day 1 to 2 weeks, so that's fine. March 2nd, now it is Noah Miller's turn to have a delayed diagnosis. Still nothing. Ooh, 3 days without a diagnosis. That's never a good sign. Let's see it, Noah Miller. Out for 6 months with a concussion. That is brutal. However, we do have Ackerman and Guevara, and this is kind of their opportunity. No Noah Miller for 6 months. That hurts. To the 60-day IL he goes. So spring training is indeed over, but not without claiming our starting shortstop. We'll have to figure that out on the fly here, but we are ready to pare down to our final 26-man roster. Opening day 2030, here's how we will line up for now. Only one platoon, that's going to be left field. Chris Newell against the righties, Jacob Reimer against the lefties. Jacob Reimer leading off in that scenario. He's a good on-base guy. Not sure if he's anything more than a good on-base guy offensively, but I'll take that in the leadoff spot against the lefties. Rafaela will play second. He's new to the team. Petrie will play first and bat second. He's also new to the team. And I'm just going to do a Guevara versus righties, Ackerman versus lefties routine here. They aren't really platoon matches in any way. They don't have platoon splits really to speak of in terms of their ratings. I just want to give them equal-ish playing time. I do trust Guevara more just because I think he's a slightly better defender. His range in the infield is better. And offensively, I think they're about the same. And hopefully they can be about as good as Noah Miller was, which isn't even particularly good. With regards to Newell, he's going to have to hit. And if he doesn't, Vance Honeycutt is licking his chops saying, let me play center and kick Chris Baker over to left. Connor Griffin's going to be in AAA licking his chops. Rafaela could play left field. Reimer could play full-time left field. So it's going to be, sink or swim for Chris Newell, kind of a similar situation to the one Devin Taylor was in. We know how that went. Pitching-wise, here's how we're going to do it. The rotation: Hall, Shimizu, Seth Johnson, Gavin Williams are both new, and Frank Trejo, number 5. We're going to start Eric Segura in AAA. I don't expect him to stay in AAA all that long. We'll see. One of these guys, I'm sure, will falter, if not both of them. Bullpen's going to be interesting. Eric Getty becomes the new closer. He also got reliever of the year votes last year. Miguel Ulloa becomes a stopper akin to a setup man, and Hurston Waldrep a stopper akin to a 7th inning guy or middle reliever. We're going to have Lopez and Caminiti in middle relief, although we will use them more often and use them as a specialist against lefties if need be. Bryce Montez de Oca and Chase Lee are here. Chase Lee was acquired as part of that Ronan Kopp trade. And Jacob deGrom in the long relief role until we get credit for signing him. I don't know. Do I have to wait until a midseason review of goals from John Fisher? I don't know. Like if I go to my team home screen, or my manager's office, it says you did it. You acquired Jacob deGrom. But if I cut him, I'm not sure if that I get credit for. So we'll see. But that's how we are going to line up in 2030. Thank you so much for watching this episode. It was certainly an eventful offseason, and we'll move forward into the season.